So the topic of this session today is really around the architecture of how we design a premium financing case, how to market this to your potential clients. So I'm going to take you through how we look at uncovering the true fact pattern of the case, the type of questions we're going to be asking the client up front to find out how this should be designed. And then I'm also going to take you through kind of an abbreviated version of the step-by-step sales process. So let's go ahead and start talking about the architecture of the design first. When we look at a premium financing opportunity, the first thing we want to know really is the purpose of putting this policy in place. It's usually either going to be more death benefit focused or it is going to be accumulation and retirement income focused. Depending on that type of design, even within each of those two categories, there are some other things that we want to know up front. And so I always say it's best to get me involved in more of what I would call a meet and greet discussion with the client via Zoom before we get into trying to play mind reader and figure out exactly what it is they're trying to do. So let's just say this is going to be a death benefit focused design. The first thing we want to look at is within a death benefit focused design, is this going to be a survivorship policy or is this going to be an individual policy? So as an example, if the client is wanting to put the policy in place to provide the liquidity that Generation 2 is going to need to pay the estate taxes, typically it's going to make more sense for the policy to be a survivorship policy where you're insuring two bodies instead of one, usually husband and wife. The reason is that the cost of insurance is much less. They're going to get a lot more bang for their buck out of a survivorship policy than an individual policy. But when you're doing a survivorship policy, for those of you that I may be preaching to the choir here, but if you're not familiar with this concept, the death benefit pays out after the second spouse dies. So this becomes extremely important to clarify with the client to make sure that the purpose of the death benefit is not at all in any way, shape, or form for the surviving spouse, because the surviving spouse after the first spouse dies would get zero death benefit out of a survivorship-based policy. If there is even a remote chance that the spouse, the surviving spouse, may need the death benefit to pay the bills, sustain lifestyle, etc., then you are going to want to do an individual policy, not a survivorship policy. Now, once we figure out what the true intent is and we figure out what type of policy they're going to use, survivorship or individual, then we need to talk about ownership, right? What person or entity is going to own the policy? If we were going to do a survivorship policy for the sole purpose of Generation 2's benefit, typically we want to put that policy inside an ILIT or an irrevocable life insurance trust. This is a special trust that is outside the client's taxable estate. And so when the death benefit pays out to the irrevocable life insurance trust, Generation 2 could use those proceeds to pay whatever estate taxes would be due. However, the death benefit paying to the ILIT, because it's outside the taxable estate, that death benefit would not be taxable regardless of the value of that estate. If we are using an individual policy and the spouse may need access to the cash value of that policy, we might have that individual policy owned in a SLAT. The benefit of the SLAT is that the spouse can access the cash value of that policy during the first spouse's lifetime. So the benefit there is a little bit more flexibility when it comes to accessing the cash value. The death benefit is still outside the taxable estate, similar to the ILIT, but unlike the ILIT, the SLAT has the flexibility of giving the spouse access to that cash value or retirement income if they decide that they want that. The downside of the SLAT is it does give a lot of power to the spouse. So whenever I hear people talk about SLATs, I always want to know, not that we have a crystal ball or anything, but I want to know what is the nature of the relationship within that marriage. If they are ride or die soulmates, sometimes the SLAT can make sense. If the marriage is a little rocky at that time, perhaps the SLAT is not the way to do it. So again, even if we know it's a death benefit focused case, we want to find out, is the benefit really for Generation 2 only? If it is, we would do a survivorship policy. And if they are at the point where they are going to be subject to estate taxes based on the value of the estate, we would typically put that policy owned inside an ILIT. If the spouse may need access to that cash value, we would typically put a policy on the breadwinner within the marriage, and then the ownership of that policy would typically be owned by a SLAT. Again, I'm not an estate tax attorney. I'm not trying to give legal advice here, but these are the general concepts that we want to have a conversation with whatever attorney is doing their estate tax planning. Next up is going to be the architecture of the design here. And what I mean by that is we want to find out when someone says, I need a $10 million death benefit. The question is, well, do you need $10 million today based on the estate tax liability if you were to die today? Or are we looking at 10 million in the future? Or in the future, are they going to need more than 10 million? Or do they think they're going to need 10 million, at life expectancy, but today maybe they don't need 10 million, maybe they need less? These are all the things we want to find out. And I will tell you from personal experience, when someone says they need a $10 million life insurance policy, that could mean so many different things. And if we don't have the proper discussion with the client up front, we could be way under insuring the client if their estate value grows over time, or we could be making a mistake in the opposite direction, right? So we want to find out, what is the true intent? What issue are we trying to solve? I built a relatively simple calculator that shows if their taxable estate is X today, based on X growth assumption, what might their taxable estate be worth in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And we typically look right around age 90 or so, assuming that's life expectancy. So we say, look, if your taxable estate value today is 10 million, by the time you hit age 90, based on this 4%, 5%, 6%, 7% growth rate, whatever it is they want to see, well, now at that point, your taxable estate is going to be substantially more than the $10 million price tag you're putting on it now. So we want to find those things out up front. And that design is going to be based on what we find out in these discussions with the client. Okay. After we figure that out, we need to discuss the loan model. Now, the loan model, we have 5 different premium financing loan models. Some of them are more leveraged than others. Some of them are kind of a hybrid, kind of a cross between non-financed and premium financed. The less leverage the client uses, the less potential upside. However, we are shaving a very significant amount of risk off of the premium financed proposition when we do one of those hybrid models. So how do we decide which one of those 5 different loan models we're going to use? We're going to take a look at the client's liquidity. We're going to take a look at how simple they want this to be. And when I say simple, some clients, regardless of their wealth, actually prefer to have a level contribution amount for a period of, 10 years, as opposed to paying interest only, which is very inexpensive in the first few years, and then balloons out to a pretty substantial interest payment in the later years. So some clients want simplicity, meaning they want a simple design where they're just paying a flat dollar amount for 10 years. Other clients don't mind a little bit more complex type of structure where the interest payments may extend out, past year 10, sometimes to year 15. Once we figure out that loan model, there are certain carriers that like certain loan models and certain carriers that do not like certain loan models. So certain carriers do not like loan models that have any sort of accrued interest component to the loan model. And so once we figure out the loan model, then we're going to pick the carrier based on what we know regarding carrier preferences. And the same thing goes with the lender. We work with about a dozen different lenders or so. Each lender has a different appetite in terms of what they are willing to allow the client to do as it pertains to accruing interest, as it pertains to different types of outside collateral that the client may post. So as you're probably starting to see, every case is very different and is going to be custom designed based on the unique situation of that client. So that is a case design when the focus is on death benefit as opposed to accumulation and retirement income. If we're going to look at an accumulation and retirement income type of design, the first thing we want to know in terms of the design is we want to understand what their perception of the 3 different stages of their adult life are. The 3 stages of their adult life, as I define them, is the first stage is their income producing years, right? During the years where they're generating income for the family, for the household, during that period of time, there is typically some sort of death benefit need. And so even when the case is supposed to be designed, focused on accumulation and retirement income, usually the insured person, assuming they're the breadwinner of the household, if they were to die unexpectedly early in, say, like a car accident, or they got cancer or something terrible, that household would not enjoy the income that that breadwinner would have earned over their lifetime. And so even for someone that says, well, I want to do this for retirement income, what I want to find out is, okay, what is your current income? What are your current overhead expenses to run your household? And if, God forbid, you were to die in a car accident tomorrow and your family no longer had your income, what type of income replacement would your family need to sustain their lifestyle? So that is what I would call stage one of a person's adult life. Stage two would be their retirement years, right? So income producing years, then stage two, their retirement years. At that point, perhaps their mortgage is paid off. Perhaps their kids are now full grown adults and they can pay their own bills. And so that overhead is less. So perhaps they don't need as much life insurance death benefit at that point. And at that point, they can start drawing income down, which again is what they thought they wanted in the first place. The discussion I want to have with a client as they're drawing down income is, do you want to have or maintain a minimum certain amount of death benefit for your spouse or for your household to enjoy even during your retirement years? Sometimes the answer is no, it doesn't matter. We're going to have enough assets outside. Family will be fine if I die. And so I want to draw down the maximum amount of annual income for retirement purposes. And I really don't care what the death benefit is. In some scenarios, they want to maintain a certain death benefit, albeit as small as $1 million, $2 million, or something like that. And so, again, we want to have that discussion with the client up front because that is going to dictate how we design the income drawdown. So stage three of a person's adult life, I call this the twilight years. This is well into their retirement years as they start approaching end of life, call it roughly age 90 or so. And I want to find out, is there a certain dollar amount you have in mind that you want to leave behind for, say, your grandkids or charity or something like that? And so that answer to that question is also going to influence how we design this in terms of income drawdown. Now, if this is for retirement income drawdown, in terms of ownership, a couple different ways to do this. They could have an active business own the policy. They could have a special purpose LLC own the policy, or they could have a living trust own the policy. In some cases, they could even own it individually. I would not recommend that. There's really no advantage to that. I'll just speak for myself. I have one of my S Corps that owns my policy and also owns my wife's policy. S Corp or LLC could be used to do this. The advantage of using a pass-through business entity like an LLC or an S Corp is that at end of life of the insured, the death benefit would pay out tax-free to that entity. Because both of those entities are pass-through entities, the surviving spouse gets the unlimited spousal step-up in basis, which they would not get with, say, a C corporation. They get that unlimited step-up in basis, so then the surviving spouse can access that death benefit amount on a tax-free basis. So again, depending on what they're trying to do, the ownership of that policy could either be a trust, an LLC, an S Corp. It could be a C Corp. However, I would not recommend it. It could be an individual. In some cases, I would not recommend it. But again, this is part of the conversation we want to have with the client. Okay. In terms of the architecture here, we want to know if they have a specific death benefit need, a minimum amount of death benefit need that they want during stage one of their life, their income producing years, and or stage two of their life, their retirement years. We want to know what that death benefit need is so that we can design it around that. Or I should say, and or we want to know what their annual budget is. Usually what happens is the client wants $1 million bajillion of death benefit, but they have a limited annual budget. So you can't buy a Lamborghini if you're making Honda payments, right? So usually what ends up happening is the design ends up being based around budget. 50,000 a year for 10 years, 100,000, $1 million a year for 10 years. Whatever that annual budget is, we say, how much per year do you want to sock away into an asset like this? They'll give us the budget. We will then design around the budget. But we also, again, we want to know, is there a specific death benefit amount they need? Usually, the death benefit amount that they want or need is greater than what their budget can afford. So I always tell clients, look, you have to be reasonable based on your budget. I know you want the Lamborghini, but you got a Mercedes budget. So we got to stay within that Mercedes budget. Okay. From there, we are going to look at the loan model again. In most cases, a retirement income design is going to be based on a level annual contribution for a period of 10 years. Not always, but usually. And so again, we're going to look at the fact pattern of that client with what they're trying to do. We're going to look again at their liquidity, how simple or complex they want this to be. We're going to evaluate the carriers that will play ball within those parameters, as well as the lender that will play ball within those parameters. And then we will design, again, the loan model, pick the carrier, pick the product, pick the process. Okay, so you can see, just telling me, oh, they want X amount of death benefit, or telling me, oh, they want to draw down retirement income. It's a lot more that goes into designing the perfectly designed premium financing arrangement than just picking death benefit or retirement income design. Okay. Then after that, we want to talk about the close, and we want to talk about the split arrangement. This is all going to be based around who is doing what. There's three different options. The third option probably doesn't apply to anyone on the call. The third option is for a brand new person in the business, young kid. He's got a rich uncle. He doesn't know anything about anything and just wants to make the introduction to his rich uncle. That is probably not applicable to anyone on this call. So we'll talk about the two other split arrangements. One of them, we're splitting 50-50, and the other one is 33-67. Essentially, the advisor, you, make double what I make in the 33-67 arrangement. In the 50-50 arrangement, I am the one that closes. I am the one that asks for their hand in marriage, right? So I am literally closing the deal, taking the application right there on the spot, packaging it all up. My office fills out all the applications, circulates them electronically for advisor signatures and client signatures. We fill out the loan application. We literally do everything for you at the close. And under that 50-50 arrangement, you are getting me as an individual person on the renewal call with your client every single year. If you opt for the 33-67% split, I do the client presentation. However, in this case, you would close, you would fill out the application, you would handle the underwriting, and then at renewals, my office staff helps you navigate through the renewals and plays quarterback and liaison between you and your client and the lender and the carrier. However, I am not on those calls individually year after year. It would be my staff. So we want to decide what arrangement you want up front. We pick that arrangement, and then we each make sure we fulfill our duties in terms of roles, etc. Okay, so that's the architecture. Let's get into the process. We have developed a very clearly delineated process that we find works better than any other process. And believe me, we have tried several different processes, many of them based on what the advisor's preferences were. And quite frankly, many of those processes were to the chagrin of the advisor. The cases stall up, the client gets confused, and the client backs out. So let's go through this. Step one, you've got to pique the interest of your prospective client, right? How do you do that? You can invite them out for drinks, you can take them to dinner, you can take them golfing, you can schmooze them, you can do whatever you want to do. We have found that the easiest way to pique interest with a potential client is to send them a 4-minute marketing video. We produce some great marketing content in-house here. We've got a whole library of short videos. You can email your client the link and they can watch the video. These short videos are sort of analogous to, say, like a movie trailer, right? You watch a 2 to 4 minute video about a movie, you pretty much decide whether you want to go to the theater and see that or not, based on that trailer. And this is what these videos do. It's an easy way to introduce the concept to your client because you don't have to so eloquently articulate what premium finance life insurance is, et cetera, et cetera. So based on what you think your client is going to want to see, we have a short video that talks about using premium finance life insurance for estate tax planning purposes. We have another one for retirement income purposes. We have another one for IRA rollovers. We have another one to reduce estate taxes. We have another one for charitable planning. And so we've made it really easy where you can literally copy, paste, and send these video links to your clients. They can watch the video. If they're interested, they're going to respond and say, hey, this is interesting. Let's talk. Okay. Step 2 is we say we want to let them browse without you hovering and without me hovering. And the way we do this is similar to the 4-minute video, the 2 to 4 minute video. We also have these 15 to 30 minute videos. I'll just call them 20-minute videos. These are pre-recorded webinars specifically built for clients' eyes, not advisors' eyes. The rationale behind having these videos in our library is here's a perfect example. I was down in San Diego speaking at an event last week for CPAs and financial advisors. And so I spent 3 days down there in the hotel. I packed everything. I did not pack any athletic gear. And I guess I didn't read the agenda or whatever. There was a yoga class that was being taught the morning of the second day. I said, you know what? I want to go to this. Well, I didn't bring any gear. So I drive to the mall. I go to this yoga shop. I walk in. I needed to buy a black pair of shorts and a t-shirt. That's it, right? But they had like 27 different pairs of black shorts, right? So I don't know this. I don't know the ins and outs of the product, the brand, etc. So a very polite, helpful sales associate walks up and says, hello, sir, welcome to the store. Can I help you? And I barely even made eye contact with him. I felt guilty after because I treated him not so friendly. Why? Because I didn't want to be bothered by some sales rep hovering over my shoulder as I'm browsing. I just want to look and not be hassled. And you have probably done the exact same thing walking into a store where you get offered help by the sales associate and you do not want their help initially. Maybe you eventually do, but you just want to browse without being bothered. That is what these clients want to do. I don't want to meet your guy yet. I want to just learn a little bit more before I meet this guy. This is a great way to let them browse without either you or me hovering over their shoulder. If you really understand human psychology, this is what the prospects want. And the reason I know this, and the reason you ought to know this, is because that's what you want when you go shopping. You don't want to be bothered at first. So you send them this 20-minute video. They watch the 20-minute video, they come back, and now they're really interested, right? They've got some good baseline knowledge about how this works, and they're envisioning themselves doing this, okay? Both of these categories of videos can be found on my website, lionsmarkcapital.com. If you go to the very top and click on Our Services, this page will pop up. You can scroll down, click on Content to Send Clients. And up top there, we have the short 2 to 4 minute videos you can send your clients. And at the bottom there, we have the 15 to 30 minute videos you can send your clients. So you can click on any one of those topics. A page will pop up where the video is, and then you can just go up, copy, paste, send that URL to your client, and they can watch, again, both the 2 to 4 minute videos as well as the 15 to 30 minute videos. Make it really, really simple for you. Okay? So after they've watched the 4-minute video and then the 20-minute video, step 3 is they're going to come to meet the wizard. The wizard is me. Okay? So we're going to do Darren's Zoom meeting number 1. This is what I would call the meet and greet meeting. There's a psychology behind this process. In retail sales, there's a 3-step process that the Masters in Retail Sales Psychology Institute in terms of the way they attain clients. Step 1 is what they call exposure. If you can get someone to walk into your storefront, whether it's a grocery store, a yoga clothing retail shop, whatever it is, you walk in the first time, they are now exposed to your brand, exposed to your offering. If you can get them to walk through the front door a second time, they have gone from being exposed to your brand, exposed to your offering, to now being familiar with it. They call it breeding familiarity. If you get them to come into your store a third time, you have now created a habit. Once you've created a habit, they feel comfortable with you. If they are going to buy, they're going to buy through you because of this 1, 2, 3 touch exposure. So the first Zoom meeting with me, though it's actually the first time they're meeting with me, it feels like the third time they're meeting with me because they've seen video number 1, video number 2, and now they're on the Zoom call with me, third contact here. So this sales psychology is all built into our process. By the time I'm on the phone with them, we're having more of a dialogue, right? More of a conversation, as opposed to me pitching them. And the reason is because the videos I've already pitched them, right? We're not starting at ground zero, which gives you and I a huge advantage in terms of moving the ball down the field. So on that meet and greet, we're going to get to know each other a little bit better. I'm going to have I have some questions I'm going to ask them. They may have some questions they want to ask me about what they saw in the video. I'm going to show them a couple case studies of clients that are not them, right? We do not want to custom design a proposal and present it to them at the first meeting. That's one of the worst things you can do. And the reason is because when you do that, they feel like we're trying to sell them on the first meet. I do not want to sell them on the first meet. I want them to get comfortable with me on the first meet, understand that our platform is superior, and I want to uncover whether or not they're actually going to qualify for this, whether or not this is suitable. The other thing it does from a human psychology standpoint is when they see case studies that are not them, what's going to happen is they're going to see the tremendous benefit that these other clients got, and it's going to breed what I call positive jealousy. They're going to get jealous of the outcome that these other folks got, and they are going to want the same outcome that these other folks got, which means that they want our offering, right? They want a similar outcome. So after I uncover exactly what it is that they want, I understand now whether or not they qualify for this. At this point, then we are going to build a custom proposal. And that takes us to Zoom meeting number 2. I'm going to present that custom proposal that we custom built for them on the second Zoom meeting, which now feels like the 4th time they're meeting me. They are now completely comfortable. They will probably have some more questions about that, and perhaps they want to talk to their spouse after I present this brilliant solution for them. The problem is that there is no way they're going to be able to explain this to their spouse or their attorney or their CPA. They are typically going to ask me to send them a copy of the proposal. Well, the proposal is 72 pages long. It's very in-depth. There's no way they're going to be able to thumb through that 70-page document and articulate the benefits and the moving parts to their spouse, significant other, advisor, whatever it is, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to build a custom video of me recapping their actual proposal. This is something that I don't know of anyone in this industry that does this. It is roughly runs about 30 minutes long, and it's me walking them through their proposal on a recorded video where we're going through the ledgers, the pages, and highlighting all the things that we went through with them on the Zoom call. Kind of like a highlight reel. We record this video, we upload it to the cloud, we circulate the link to you, to the client. They can forward that link to their spouse, to their CPA, to their attorney, to whoever they want. And now everyone is seeing this solution being presented by me and not them, right? Much better to hear it from the horse's mouth than it is to hear it, second, third, fourth party. So we circulate that video, which leads us to step 6. Now there's 2 different methods of step 6, okay? Step 6A is I get back on a Zoom meeting with them. This would be Zoom meeting number 3. Feels like the 5th time they've met me. And I literally close the deal and take the app right there on the phone. and that is the 50-50 split arrangement. This really feels more like a true partnership between me and you. We are both on every single call up front, all the way through, and even at client renewals. I am on the phone or the Zoom call with you and the client. Sometimes that client is going to have very technical questions that might be better answered by me than you. Sometimes that might be product design, it might be their index allocations. It may be a question like, what is the historical volatility of the caps in an IUL product? It might be, what is the historical CMT rates on the borrowing side? Things like that. Those are easy questions for me to answer because I'm in this, every day. If you're not in the premium financing space every day, some of those questions may stump you, and then you've got to get back to them. And not that that's a bad thing, you could certainly do that. But if you want me to close the whole deal and be with you all the way through, the split is 50-50. If you think you can handle that, no problem. In that case, you're making double what I'm making. You're making 67%. I'm making 33%. I am presenting all the way through, but you are the one that would close the case. You're the one that would fill out the application, set up the paramed, go through the underwriting, and then you would be meeting with that client each year at policy/loan renewal. And my office staff would help you through that process, but it would not be me as an individual on all those phone calls with you. So it makes no difference to me in terms of which way you go. I'm happy to do either one. But I want you to really understand that the sales process to the closing to the renewal process is all very clearly delineated, as is our marketing process in terms of being able to get you great marketing content to share with your client. That takes us to the end of the session here. We're 40 minutes in. Let's see, we've got, I think 20 minutes left. I always run out of time for Q&A, so today I want to make sure we had enough time for Q&A.
I just wanted to say, Darren, this is really, really appreciated that you have just delineated such clear processes for us. We honestly haven't had such clear processes for premium finance in the past, and I think this will make a world of difference with our cases going all the way through. So thank you so much.
Oh,
this
good.
Is, greatly appreciated.
Good. So here, these are the email scripts you can copy, paste, send for the short video. Here's a phone script you can use if you want to follow up on a phone call with them. And then here's the email template you can copy, paste, send to book the Zoom with me. So we make it really, really efficient, very, very easy.
And Darren, where are those videos again, please?
Can you guys see my website?
Yes.
Okay. Click Our Services, and then go down here to Advisor Resources, Content to Send Clients.
Perfect. Okay.
And then up here are the short videos to send them. Down here are the longer ones. So just as an example, IRA rollover to premium financing, 4 minutes. You could just copy, paste, send this URL to your client. You guys want to watch this one real quick? This one's pretty short. This is the IRA rollover. Just to kind of give you a taste of what this looks like, feels like. If you have an IRA and you want to maximize the amount you pass on to your kids, which outcome would you prefer? Now, the answer may seem obvious to you, but the blue bars are what happens when you leave all of your money in a traditional IRA. And the green bars are when you roll over that IRA into a leveraged legacy IRA plan, a proprietary, tax-efficient, generational wealth transfer plan, and a collaboration between Lionsmark Capital and Sage Consulting. The problem is that most people think their IRAs are tax efficient. I mean, that was the whole reason they did this in the first place, and they contributed to it for a long time. But if you've reached a level of financial success where you no longer need these pre-tax IRA funds to retire on, you're going to get double taxed. First with income taxes, and second with estate taxes. Now, as an example, one of our clients' estate was valued at just over $29 million, of which $2 million was held inside an IRA, which they said they were never going to use for lifestyle expenses. They had accumulated enough wealth elsewhere, so they were just going to pass on their IRA to their kids. But then they realized that they were going to get hit with 37% in federal income tax, plus another 8% in New Jersey state income tax when it was time to take their RMDs. Now that's 45% in income taxes right off the bat. And then to add insult to injury, these funds were also going to get hit with another 40% in estate tax at their end of life. So at their end of life, their $2 million in IRA funds were going to be subject to 45% in income taxes, taking the net value down to $1.1 million. But it gets even worse, because on top of that, another 40% in estate taxes will be due on that value, which means their kids were only going to end up with $660,000 of their $2 million IRA. I mean, think about that for a second. Their $2 million IRA was only going to be worth 33% of its value when their kids inherit it, because 67% was going to be confiscated in the form of taxes. By using the Leveraged Legacy IRA plan, they could roll over that $2 million into our Leveraged Legacy IRA plan, and that $2 million could be used to buy a $10 million survivorship life insurance policy inside their plan. That $2 million would be 4 years of $500,000 annual premiums, all of which would be paid for with pre-tax dollars. Then in year 5, they would buy the policy out of the plan using an irrevocable life insurance trust at a 50 to 60% discounted value, based on the IRS safe harbor valuation plus our proprietary design. In that 5th year, one of our lenders would then fund the 5th year premium, and the interest due could either be paid out of pocket or they could accrue the interest. At their end of life, their adult kids would get $10.3 million in death benefit, tax-free net of loans. To give you an idea of how this compares to leaving the money inside an IRA after the double taxation, here's what it looks like. With a $2 million starting IRA value, growing tax-deferred at 7%, at age 90, the IRA would have a gross value of $7.2 million. But after 45% in income taxes, the net value would only be $3.9 million. But that's not it. There would still be 40% in estate taxes due, which means that after 20 years, their kids would only get $2.3 million. After 20 years of tax-deferred growth, earning 7% every year with no down years. Here's what it looks like over 30 years until the wife turns age 100. The blue line is the IRA's net after-tax value we just looked at, and the green line is the Leveraged Legacy IRA value with the premium finance life insurance policy using the rollover. So at age 90, the difference is $7.9 million in favor of the Leveraged Legacy IRA plan. At age 80, over $9 million, and initially at age 71, $11.3 million more benefit in the Leveraged Legacy IRA plan. So if you want more certainty, maximizing tax efficiency, and you'd rather have the green bars instead of the blue bars, consider the Leveraged Legacy IRA plan. It's brought to you by Lionsmark Capital and Sage Consulting. You'll be glad you did. All right, so if they're not interested after seeing that, they ain't going to be interested in anything.
Hey, Darren, I got to tell you, I've watched some of your videos, and I've got to give a shout out. I think your script, your presentation, and your video, I mean, they're spot on. They're really, really very good.
Thank you. Thank you. That is years and years and gazillions of dollars of learning from marketing masters and copywriting masters. Understand how do you get a complex concept into someone's head in 2 to 4 minutes, keeping it simple enough to where a layman can understand it, but be thorough enough where it's not just a bunch of fluff. It's not an easy task, but fortunately for you, you get to use my stuff for free, unless you want to pay any extra for it. I do take tips. I take Venmo. You can pay me in tequila.
I'll send you bonbons.
There you go. Well, that's money well invested.
I am, as we were watching that video, I'm copy pasting email script templates into a Microsoft Word document. So you can just open it up, highlight, copy, paste, send, boom, boom, boom. Though I don't know if I ever share this with you. The way I figured out the efficiency of this is long before online dating, back when I was single. I figured out how to use these social networking sites. There was one called Friendster, which was before MySpace, which was before Facebook. I used them as dating sites. I had a very clever 3-sentence pickup line. I'd copy, paste, send. I'd scroll. She's cute. Copy, paste, send. I'd send out 20 a night at an 8% direct response rate within 24 hours. So every night I get back from the office at like 11 o'clock at night, and I check my inbox. and I had 2 responses every night. So I was getting, about a 90%, 92% rejection rate, but it didn't matter. So I got 2 messages in my inbox. You know what happens when you get 2 messages in your inbox over time? It's a compound effect. So it got to the point where I had too many prospects. I couldn't even meet with the prospects. And I had zero emotion in the deal because I'm not aware emotionally that I'm getting rejected 92% of the time, because the 8% was making me rich in terms of the dating world. So that's how I learned how to do this, quite frankly.
I think you should write a book. I'll buy it.
Yeah.
I'm single. I'll buy it. I'll bite.
Oh, it was easy. It was so easy. Everyone always says, oh, it's a numbers game. Well, the problem is, if you have to approach someone in person, it is not a numbers game. It's an emotional game. It's a devastating emotional game. It's a depressing game. And then you get prospect avoidance. So in sales, if you can prospect and remove the emotion, you can mass market, mass prospect, and get so many inbound responses that you don't have time to chase the ones that aren't interested,
Brilliant thought.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, enjoy the rest of the day. I'll post this in school in the next few minutes here.